Hi, my name is Christopher Chen, and this is my AE 2611 presentation. And for my topic, I chose a hypothetical startup company. And so my product is essentially little robots that will go around collecting space debris, and I named it Perigee. Um, so essentially, the big problem that I'm trying to solve here is that low Earth orbit is essentially there's a lot of debris in space because of how much stuff we are sending up, and all those objects are moving incredibly fast up there. And so once they collide into other things such as working satellites, they will break them because they're moving so fast. They have so much kinetic energy. It just like will completely punch holes in these functional pieces of hardware. And so essentially, this is a one of the risks that scientists see is that because there's a compounding effect of essentially one small piece of space debris can cause a lot more pieces of space debris to come out. And each one of these is very, very hard to track because they're potentially so incredibly small. I mean, it's literally just like tiny little like nuts and bolts or even like pieces of it are literally just flying around causing more and more problems. And so this is where my product comes in. It's essentially a little robot that will go around collecting this space debris from like a little central platform. They essentially will um, it will track these space debris and then send out these little robots that will fly over and essentially they will use electromagnetic little grabbers that so instead of actually having to use like mechanical little arms, which would be, incredibly energy intensive and work intensive, we're essentially just going to use magnets so that the objects will be attracted to the little grabber hands. And so essentially we can then use things like, neural nets and other softwares to then predict and track all these little pieces of space debris and then send out little like robots wherever they need to go so that we can form essentially an effective network that way be able to track and pick up all these like small pieces of debris. And so essentially because we're also going around the earth, it's a lot easier to just use the earth fields to be able to maneuver ourselves. So a big problem again is putting stuff up in space is like very expensive. So we want to move as little like propellant and mass up there as possible. And so this will essentially allow us to have to transport less mass, which is another safe spending saving measure. There we go. And so the way we dispose of the space debris once we have collected this is that we then, after we have grabbed it and it is on our robots, we can then use our magnets to then send it back down to Earth. Um, and essentially what it'll do, because again, these a lot of these pieces of space debris are fairly small, they'll essentially go into the atmosphere and they'll burn up in the atmosphere. And so there's essentially no other thing to do from there. I mean, there's very little risk of it actually hitting anything on Earth because of, reentry. And so another point I want to make is that it's a very large market and it's only going to expand from here. I mean, we see, SpaceX just made its IPO. Everything with space is, getting lots of funding, and there's going to be a lot more items being sent up to space. And so essentially the market is only going to continue and continue to grow. And so as you can see, there's probably going to be even more annual growth, even to the end of the decade. And so this is my product, and I just like to say thank you for looking at this presentation, and goodbye. Ooh,